Hey guys, Verbal Engine 95, recording live from your local county prison cell. This week's episode is, well, I'm gonna say it now because it's that so that I'm not rambling on for 15 minutes. It is Onslaught from Marvel versus Omega Shenron or Sin Shenron / Omega Shenron, from Dragon Ball GT. Now, this is actually a fun one for me because some past lore you might not know about me is that before I even really knew what Death Battle was, when I was maybe 15, 16, I wanted to do a matchup channel. I had a lot of inspirations behind that. I had people like Deadpoolzilla, Jack Kirby, Wolverfractor 907, Mount Vernon Kid, right? A lot of those guys did like matchup channels on their show, and they didn't. I think Death Battle had been around, but it was so inconsistent that it wasn't like a regular series. And that's what I wanted to do before I, jump ship to Death Battle. And so I had a bunch of fights that I thought were like, that I came up with, and I did just kind of pull them out of thin. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't. Some of them were like super a little cliche, and then some of them I was like, no, I think this is the one, right? And one of the first fights I came up with was this one, and my reason for doing it was literally just these were the two most like OP characters I could think of. I had a very limited scope of media at the time. And by complete accident, these characters have so many similarities, both like meta and not, like macro, like outside of their universes and internally, that I'm like, I have to, because I haven't seen this fight done anywhere. And like I wanted to do this. I've thought about doing this before, but I thought, well, Onslaught is a character from a very specific point in Marvel, and GT is considered like no one's touched anything GT in forever, but like now with X-Men 97 rumoring doing Onslaught, and GT coming back into resurgence through things like Heroes and the games and whatnot, it's actually not a terrible plan to do something like this. And that was actually one of the big similarities that I realized after a while, was these two characters are fucking well, maybe not as characters per se, but these two have a lot of fan hate behind them. A lot of people for a very long time, this is not something that you can really, this isn't like a historical inference that you can pull. This is kind of something you had to talk to people and really like hear people talk about to know. You had to be there. Sorry. People have legitimately said Onslaught was the worst period of time in Marvel Comics. I remember those words being spoken. A lot of people said it was worse than many other historically bad points in comic history because it lasted so long and it was just like so annoying, and it was just so bullshit. Like a lot of people hated Onslaught. Like I remember my friends who were big comic book fans telling me like, do not mention that name to me ever again, right? GT for literal decades was despised. Not, I will admit the show is not very good, but in many parts of it. But like as soon as Battle of Gods came out, and I don't know if Toriyama officially said this or not, but they were like, GT's not canon, let's go, get the fuck out of here, nobody ever talk about GT ever again, right? Like, yeah, I remember people being mad about GT characters being in games. Like, that's how much they hated it. They were like, I should not have to interact with a GT character ever. And that's how much they despised the property. So that's one instance of these characters being similar. The other connections are just, humanity, or those with power being irresponsible, and these beings coming out of I'll explain that once I get into the actual analysis here. Going into Onslaught, we'll start with Onslaught here. So when Charles Xavier and Magneto were having their big, their historic, I don't know if you could call it rivalry per se, I don't know if you'd call it a rivalry, but their historic outs, they it started weighing on Charles Xavier's mind. The fear of never being able to achieve his dream of mutant human equality, and the constant bearing witness to the abuse of his people and whatnot, eventually made something in him snap. And at one point, he did he psionically attacked Magneto and fried his brain. This merged the consciousness and the negative emotions of both men together and implanted itself into Xavier. And the more stressed and the more the more that would weigh on him from this struggle of his people, the more it would grow, until eventually he witnessed a mutant child being murdered by police, and that being was released, and that being was known as Onslaught. It is the physical, technically, manifestation of Magneto and Xavier's negative emotions of having to do with the mutant human class struggle. Onslaught has the combined power and then some of his two fathers, of Magneto and Xavier, to the degree where he is actually one of the primary psychic powers in Marvel history. He's been known to change holograms, not by creating illusions, but by literally manipulating the dust and water vapor particles in the air that refract the light that the holograms produce to change them. And he can even rip astral projections into reality. He can take the astral projection of another psychic character, as in their non-physical being, and pull it into our physical reality. That's just one of many different abilities he has. He has, telepathy, telekinesis, energy projection, can read minds, shut down minds, implant information into other minds, just a host of things. As well as Magneto's abilities of hypermagnetism and, controlling the iron in the air or in somebody's blood and whatnot. Stuff like that is whatever to him. As well as, have using that same magnetism to increase his strength, to insane degrees. His base level strength is purported to be around 100 tons as is, using the magnetism from Magneto to condense his muscles, and Xavier and the telekinesis from Xavier to help him lift objects. His strength is immeasurably more. Though it's kind of weird that he needs super strength, considering he's not actually a physical being. He's actually a psionic spiritual being, so to speak. Does not have a physical body, or he does, but it's not his true essence, right? He kind of uses his physical body as almost like a plate armor, and if that armor is destroyed, which it has been by, like, the Hulk, after Onslaught separated the psyches of Hulk and Banner, meaning Hulk had no one impeding his rage, so he could just go completely all out on Onslaught, which led to him losing his physical body. But Onslaught can still survive as a psionic, intangible being, capable of technically interacting with the world still, but generally needs, like, some sort of host or physical manifestation to live. Yeah, but very, very scary character. Took on the likes of Alpha Flight by himself, took on the Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four at once. Had heavy hitters like Thor, Hulk, Doctor Doom all going at him at once, and just took it. Just was completely pretty much unfazed by it. Which was more terrifying due to the fact that he had also absorbed what was it? What the hell was his name? Mr. Fantastic's kid, Franklin Richards, the reality warper. And what was the other one? It was Nathan Gray, I think. I think it was like Jean Grey's like brother or something. Yeah, absorbing 2 Omega level mutants and gaining that power for himself, to the point where he can make a sun appear out of literal nothingness, right? And whatnot. And that leads me to the other ability, is that, or his, the ability that allows for this sort of thing. Onslaught has the ability to just absorb mutants into his being, right? He doesn't, like, absorb their powers like Rogue or something. He just absorbs them and then gains their abilities. Like, again, the child, Franklin Richards, who has the power to manipulate and define reality. Yeah, he just took that shit. And that was why it took so many things to bring him down. You think, how is he stopped? Well, he does have a weakness, and that is in the same way that he can only absorb mutants, and in the same way that absorbing mutants gives him their powers, absorbing humans actually weakens him, which is how he was defeated, because people like Doom voluntarily, Captain America, etc., voluntarily allowed themselves to be absorbed by him so that he was able to be defeated. And his astral presence has been destroyed by characters like Nightcrawler and whatnot, so it's not impossible to defeat Onslaught. It's just, he is a boss character. He is a end of times character. And it is entirely humanity's fault that he exists, because rather, as long as there is that inequality, that we are denying someone fighting for it, something like that is going to happen. Moving on to, I guess I should technically call it Sin Shenron, but Omega Shenron's going to be in the thumbnail. So in GT, the core plot device is the Super Dragon Balls, as they're called. And one little difference that they have between them and the regular Dragon Balls is that, apparently, when the regular Dragon Balls are used, negative energy is produced in order to create the wish. I don't know. And I guess at some point in time, the characters were warned to not overuse the Dragon Balls for that purpose. But eventually, enough was enough, and out came the 7 Shadow Dragons, chief and strongest among them being Sin Shenron. Now, Sin Shenron is, I believe they said he was born from the wish. Each Shadow Dragon is born from a specific wish, right? One wish became too much, overflowed the pool of energy, and led to that dragon being born. And the one that brought him to life was, I believe, it was the wish to bring everyone who Frieza had killed to Earth. Yeah, it was bring everyone that Frieza had killed to Earth. And Shenron even said that might not be within my power. So that wish was so much energy that it created the strongest of the Shadow Dragons. Sin Shenron was capable of taking on Super Saiyan 4 Goku. He was blinded at the time, but he was also, so he was about at half power. But then it also took Super Saiyan 4 Goku being empowered by Trunks, Pan, and Super Saiyan Gohan, all lending their power to Super Saiyan 4 Goku in order for him to beat Sin Shenron. But that is when Sin Shenron pulled out his trump card, which was he has the ability to absorb the other 6 Dragon Balls, which give him not only multiply his power, I believe it said tenfold in the show, but also allow him to use all of the abilities from the other 7 Shadow Dragons, right? This includes he can use electricity, known as Dragon Thunder, from Rage Shenron. That should also give him the ability to use the Electro Slime, but that's not been shown, but we can presume he has it. Oceana Shenron, manipulating the air, being able to make air so dense that it actually creates a wall or creates creates literal energy balls out of air. Ice Shenron, being able to shoot rays of ice and create ice from nothingness and, have it be like absolute 0 level cold. Nuova Shenron, or Nova Shenron, depending on your localization, who can increase his body temperature to be the temperature of the sun and can engulf an entire city in flames. Naturon Shenron, I believe his name is, who can absorb organic beings and kind of learn their techniques and absorb their qualities to himself, like anything from turning into a giant mole after observing a mole so he can dig to below the Earth's crust, or turning into a giant dragon, or even absorbing Pan and learning how to do the Kamehameha. You've got, I think the other one is Haze Shenron. Did I miss one after that? Yeah, Haze Shenron, I know, is one who is physically weak but is able to create a pollutive smoke that significantly weakens inorganic beings to the point where Goku, even though he was so laughably weak that a brick hitting his foot would hurt him, he lowered Goku and Pan's strength to be able to the point where he was able to effortlessly dominate them. So with all of these powers, in addition to just his own overpoweredness, Omega Shenron is pretty much unbeatable, to the point where he takes on he has one of the goriest moments in the show with Vegeta. He pretty much dominates Goku, right? It takes Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta to take them down, and then even then, because they didn't take him seriously, it didn't work. And the thing that eventually killed him was the Super Mega Spirit Bomb. It's even said that his own negative energy that brought him to life from the Dragon Balls, as Omega Shenron, he would be able to destroy the universe with that energy if he were to spread it, right? So he could pretty much, and he attempted to do so, it just takes time to do. And he was destroyed by the Spirit Bomb before that could happen. But yeah, using all of those absorbed attacks and his own kind of ace in the hole attack known as the minus power energy ball, which I think is just a translation or mislocalization. I think it's supposed to be negative power energy ball, which is described as being all of the world's negative emotion converted to energy. That should really, yeah, I mean, he was for a very long time the most powerful character in the history of Dragon Ball, in the Dragon Ball franchise. Could still arguably be one of the top ones, depending on how you look at it. Not unless you watch Hero. Not if you watch Heroes, though. But who do I think wins in this fight? This is tricky to say. Both have a lot of similar abilities. Like I said, both are created from, negative emotion or negative energy in some capacity. Both have the ability to absorb others and use their powers. However, Naturon Shenron is relegated to absorbing organic beings, so with Onslaught being a psionic being, he wouldn't be able to do that, and Onslaught wouldn't be able to absorb Omega Shenron because he's not a mutant, so there's that. And that's kind of where I'm looking at this. Like, Omega Shenron can, using something like Ki or using something like being like an evil spirit dragon, it's understandable to think like, well, psionic / spiritual energy should be able to be destroyed. However, a lot of the abilities given to him by the Shadow Dragons are not really they only work in a physical sense, right? And you can combat Onslaught on the physical scale, but that doesn't kill him, and that doesn't prevent him from attacking you. He still exists on the psionic scale. So, now, Omega Shenron said he could destroy the universe, right, by spreading his negative energy all throughout it. But that's shown to take some amount of time. Not hours and hours or anything, but it's like a charge-up attack. And considering we see Onslaught just create literal suns out of nowhere instantaneously, I don't think that would be something that would happen. So basically, it's very easy to say, okay, well, one of these characters is so much stronger than the other. First of all, it depends on how you look at Dragon Ball scaling, because scaling in that show is just a complete nightmare. Same with Marvel. But I don't think these two characters, in terms of power output, are ridiculously far away from each other. I think it's just the fact that Onslaught is not something that Omega Shenron is equipped to be able to kill. Or if he can, not efficiently, or as efficiently as Onslaught. Like, yeah, even if we're assuming that, like, psionic energy can be killed with Ki or something, or that the negative energy that's capable of destroying the universe could destroy Onslaught, there's nothing that I'm aware of that's preventing Onslaught from just taking over Omega Shenron's mind, like, with his, telepathic abilities or his telekinetic abilities. So, like, or removing the Dragon Balls from his chest using telekinesis. So, yeah, it's a physical fight, but the fight isn't determined by what happens. Like, it's not determined by who hits who hard enough to kill them. It's who can, like, erase the other from existence, pretty much. And Onslaught has the ability to do that, pretty much. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to give this to Onslaught, but props to 15-year-old me for accidentally coming up with, like, an amazing fight. And, yeah, anyway, Verbal Engine 95, see ya.